there's a lot of people out there who feel like delegating is telling people to do stuff, but how do you get out of that mindset where when we delegate something, we're more or less empowering them to do things?
So maybe one, we define delegation a little bit. It's not just having people do their daily task and you being the manager. It's, to me, when I think of delegation, it's me as a manager spreading my responsibilities down to free me up for more important tasks. That is hard sometimes to do because, again, you're giving somebody else the work that you're supposed to be doing. You don't want to feel that you're passing off your work because you're being lazy or anything. But we can't do everything that's asked of us all the time. And
Hmm.
especially when you're given a large project, pieces need to be distributed. So again, to me, that's the difference between delegating and just people doing their day-to-day work. One problem I had in the past that I always think about when I talk about delegation is you've got to have somebody to delegate to. I've been in roles where I was the bottom and my boss would say, you've got to delegate. You can't do all this yourself, but you've got to have people to delegate to.
Hmm.
So that's key number one. You've got to have people you can delegate to. They have to have the skills that are needed for the task you hand them. They have to have the time. They have to have the understanding, and they have to have the freedom. And that's very key too. You've got to give the freedom to the person you're delegating the work to. When you start micromanaging and things like that, you're not delegating. It's not much more than using an AI tool at that point. You're telling somebody else to do it, and you're
Let me interject there. So you mentioned that if somebody's at the bottom and they're not able to delegate to people below them, is it okay to seek out people who you can delegate that work to? Maybe colleague.
I guess lateral instead of vertical with the
Yeah.
delegation. Yeah, if you have that authority given to you by your supervisor. Again, most managers only know who they have responsibility of. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good point. Going laterally, sometimes you're going to get a lot better results that way because again, let's say I go to another director at my level and say, "Hey, I've got this project, I don't have it." They may have some people they can delegate to. So they're willing to take on a piece, but again, they can distribute some of that work out.
Mhm.
So you start getting this pyramid or a tree of people that can help. So no, that's a good point to bring up. Now there are risks assigned with delegation. Like again, poor communication or having your delegates not understand the work, so they don't do it up to your par. Like I said, you've got to have the right people.
Mhm.
It's got to be clearly understood. There's also benefits to the people you delegate to because now you're sharing not only the work, you get to share the credit. You get to share the success of the project. You're empowering your employees to showcase themselves. You're giving them a chance to be responsible. Uh,
Mhm.
so delegation has a lot of benefits. I
Right.
really hadn't thought about the benefits to the lower levels until this point. So interesting.
And even sometimes when you're running a meeting, if you're taking lots of notes, copious notes, you're not directing that meeting. So you can easily ask somebody in the group, hey, can you take these notes, delegate that to somebody else, and then you're able to be more strategic in that meeting and drive that meeting because you delegated the note taking to someone else.
Well, I don't know why the thought popped in my head though as we were discussing this. Do you remember group projects in college?
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody had their part. To me, that was where trust was difficult. If there was poor communication, you weren't meeting together. Now, that's a little different concept because, like I said, that's a group project. Nobody was in charge delegating or managing delegation. But I just wonder if we go back to that point in our lives to find where we are a good delegating manager or not. How do we accumulate that, or not accumulate,
Mm.
or acquire that skill? Maybe that's not a skill everybody has. I don't know if it can be learned or if it's just natural.
I think some people, it definitely comes naturally to them, but then, of course, others are definitely going to have to learn and get used to get comfortable telling people, hey, I'm going to give you this to do. And so sometimes I think it's almost like being a coach. You got your players out in the field and you got your front line, they've got to rush the quarterback, and then linebackers have got to stay back. So you're putting them into place, giving them responsibility, what they should do, and you're standing back and making sure they're getting it done.
I think it's a good analogy because each player on that field has their own strengths. The quarterback's not a receiver, so you're going to give the right responsibility to the right person. I'm not going to ask a catcher on the baseball field to run out to center field and try to catch a fly ball. Well, it's just not going to work. Again, maybe that's twisting the analogy a little strongly.
Mm.
But you're right. Each person has their strengths. You need to identify the strengths and you need to make sure you work with those. It's a tool. You work with the tools that you've got and you know how to use them the best way possible.